So, welcome everybody to the West Coast Jazz Hour on September 15th, 2020. Episode, Josh, help me out, 15, 16?
I think this is 17.
17 already. My gosh, time flies.
Yeah.
In any case, today we have a very, very special guest with us. He is a dear, 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 dear friend of mine and of Josh. This man has made sure that I haven't lost my sanity during this quarantine, since we've been playing actually on a weekly basis through this whole ordeal. So like, I'm super grateful for this guy. He is an amazing musician who has worked with. He has played with a couple noteworthy people, such as Corea, Freddie Hubbard, Steely Dan, Joni Mitchell, Michael Brecker, Herbie Hancock, Billy Childs. The list goes on and on and on. Also, not to mention all of the big bands that he's been playing with, for example, Monkestra of the great John Beasley. So today, me and my co-host Josh Nelson welcome the amazing Bob Sheppard. Bob, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah,
it's a
Bob.
pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Josh, my friends, for having me on your now famous show. Right? You know how it works?
Amen.
Right? It's that all you have to start out with something, and then it grows. But thank you very much for the invitation.
Oh, thank you.
You've had an illustrious group of people before me, heroes of mine and friends of mine, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Yes. Shep, usually what I do, or maybe you're already familiar with this, but I ask all of the guests, why was it that you moved to LA? When did you move to LA? Because you're originally from Philadelphia and you were in New York prior to move out to LA. So can you tell a little bit about your move from New York to LA?
Yeah, I was never actually west of Harrisburg. I didn't know anything about LA. I was getting ready to move to New York. I was going to school in Rochester at Eastman School of Music. I got my master's degree there.
Oh yeah.
And I was just playing gigs around Rochester the summer of I don't know, 78, getting sort of, ready to pack my bags and move to New York. I always planned to be in New York. Just I grew up there. My family's from there. And one morning I got a call from Dean of Music at Loyola University in New Orleans, and he asked me if I was interested in coming to audition for a teaching position at Loyola University. And I wasn't even applying for any jobs teaching, but a friend of mine recommended me, and they needed somebody. And next thing you know, I went down there, auditioned, and I got this job like out of nowhere. And I ended up moving to New Orleans, and that was sort of another little short lifetime of mine where I met so many incredible musicians, and I really loved it. I had a really nice job, but they wanted me to stay, but I took a leave of absence. After 2 years, I said, I want to move to New York. But right at that time, a friend of mine, I don't know, Josh, maybe both of you guys know a guy named John Serry.
Yes, I know who that
Did
is.
you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he was a composer and a friend of mine from school, and him and his band, they had a record deal out here, and then he got his own record deal. One thing, he wanted me to play. Basically, he wanted me to play on his record. So I ended up flying out to LA, and doing this record, and he's like, you got to come out to LA, man. Everyone hears you. You're going to start working. And so it was just a timing thing where all my friends from Eastman were migrating to LA rather than New York, and I got a work opportunity. So I literally packed up my U-Haul trailer and moved out to LA. I slept on the floor of John Serry's house up in Laurel Canyon, and that was the beginning. That was 1980, of the fall of 1980, where I came to LA, and I knew nothing about LA. I really didn't move here for studio work. Actually, I just wanted to just play. I just wanted to go somewhere where there are great musicians and see what happens and make a living, hopefully,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
glad you did.
Yeah.
Well, it was a good move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Who were some of your,
And who were some of the?
go ahead. Sorry, Kevin. I think there's a delay.
No, I think you wanted to ask the same question that I wanted to ask, so you go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, since you were speaking about Rochester and Eastman, Bob, going to Eastman, who were some of your teachers, mentors, professors during that time you were getting your undergrad and your master's? I don't know if I know who you studied with.
Well, I was in Philadelphia for my undergrad, and I was just playing gigs around town. And Manny Album,
Manny Album,
famous ranger composer, was coming. He was sort of a guest teacher down, and he heard me. He took me under his wing, sort of, and said, "You got to go up to Eastman. Sure, they have this new master's program there, and they have this a ranger's holiday thing in the summertime, and they have." And I really didn't want to go because I was working. I was young. There was a lot of work around Philadelphia. I was, I was just doing well but just playing all kinds of different kind of gigs. A lot live gigs, no recording, but a lot of live gigs. And I had a girlfriend in college, and I was happy in Philadelphia. But it was the best thing I did. He really strongly urged me to go, and I ended up going, and had started a path of meeting these incredible musicians that I still work with and work for, and it sort of took me out of my element, my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember working first, like a big gig was Chuck Mangione when he had a big orchestra with Chase the Clouds Away and and all that stuff. And I was in the orchestra. I was playing flute and clarinet, and my teacher was Ray Rickards, great saxophone player. And but all these guys that around town are still here. Some of them were undergrads, but I was a grad student, and there's a whole slew of great players that came from Eastman that are making a living in the studio. So anyway, it was sort of an unexpected for me to be in LA, but it was at the time in 1980. I immediately started doing big band rehearsals down at the Union, and I got there was an opening, and Toshiko Akiyoshi, who lived back in the big band, and that was a big deal for me. I got play next to Gary Foster and Lou Tabakin, and Dan Higgins was in there. Anyway, I started touring with them. I went to Japan a couple of times. I went to Europe with them, and I was doing lots of little, I was doing a lot of playing actually with friends of mine that I met right away. I think one of the reasons I probably stayed in LA was because I met a group of people that wanted to play. Like they were here to play jazz. Mm-hmm. And then people like Danny Embry and Bob Bowman and Steve Houghton and Clay Jenkins. And I started meeting guys that we would just play a couple times a week, hang out, listen to music, and it really felt good here. I felt like I had people that I could hang with, and so and so I didn't know where it was going. I didn't have any idea what LA was about, but there was a lot going on, and of course, that holds you to a place. I liked it. The session work happened sort of organically, because when you do a big band and someone needs somebody, there's, oh yeah, call this guy. He can play in tune and sounds like he's a good guy. I mean, he's a nice guy. And one thing led to another that way. It was like, God, I can't even imagine. I remember like one day, getting called for a session at Universal, and I, I had to, figure out where to go, and there was these players in the section that were on records that I had, like famous guys, Bob Cooper and Jack Nimitz, and I don't know, maybe Lanny Morgan, or there was these famous jazz guys. And I go, what am I doing here? So that's sort of what happened slowly, like I was this new young guy in town, and there was enough work around that it sort of you can start doing stuff, and that's what happened. But the jazz that was the session work thing and the big band thing was sort of related to me at the time. But the jazz thing was something that was separate than that in a way. That there were, I didn't know I was doing this at all, but I sort of had two little different career paths that I was pursuing jazz because that's what I really want to do. But that there was opportunities to play in a lot. There was clubs like right around the corner, Dante's, and little places like to come back in. That's where I met Billy Childs, by the way. That's really helped me start playing jazz because Billy Childs heard me, and we started playing together. He started using me in his for his music and his gigs. And because of Billy, I was introduced to, I sat in with Freddie. He was playing with Freddie Hubbard. So this sort of jazz path was happening. And at the same time, I was trying to make money and do what other gigs. So it was all part of my LA experience, that I didn't know what I was doing. It just sort of one thing led to the branches on the tree sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, you're mentioning Billy and you're mentioning Freddie. So that actually gives me a nice crossover to maybe the first recording that we can show, because you were in Freddie's band. How long were you in Freddie's band?
Well, I played with Freddie for 7 or 8 years.
Wow. Okay.
So cool.
Yeah. But Freddie didn't, he had sort of a West Coast band. He had an East Coast band. He had pickup bands a lot. He didn't never had like real set band. So I would do stuff on the West Coast once in a while. He would hire me. I did a couple gigs in New York. I went to Europe with him. But then a lot of times he would have a whole set of other guys that he would call, and I wouldn't get the call. But over the course of 8 years, I played a lot with Freddie, and I'll never forget that. That was profound and
I'm sure
exciting and scary at the same time.
Yeah,
so,
right.
so yeah, I'm not on a lot of studio. I'm not on studio recordings with Freddie. I'm actually for the thing I was looking around for some bootlegs and stuff, live recordings that I did with Freddie. I didn't have the wherewithal to ask the sound man to record shows or anything back then. I wish I had more. There's some around, but I couldn't find them. There's some around. I know Billy Childs has some bootlegs.
Yeah. Well, there's at least one that's available. That's called Freddie Hubbard Live, where you guys play. Or there are 3 tunes on the entire record. It was recorded at, if I'm not mistaken, Douglas Beach House in Hermosa Beach or something
Pete
like
Douglas.
that.
Yeah, which is very interesting
Pete Douglas.
place. That there's a whole story which I won't get into now, but Pete Douglas he was a character, and he loved jazz, he loved classical music, and he had this beach house in Half Moon Bay, way back then, and they used to hang out and smoke a joint on the beach, and they used to throw dynamite in the water. Literally, that they lit dynamite and throw it in the ocean. So he called it the Bach Dynamite and Dance Society, and that became a very, very great place to play. One of the great jazz clubs in the country, actually, because
Yeah.
it sounds great in there. And
That's one of my
you
favorite
played there. You played
venues.
there, Josh.
I've played there
I'm sure
many
a bunch of
times.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Don't you love playing there?
it's still one of my favorite places just for the
Yeah.
vibe. The sound is incredible, like you're saying. The hang. I took a few puffs with Pete downstairs, man, and outside. We had a
He's
great time. I
it's
really
great.
felt lucky that I got to
Oh,
hang with him a little bit before he passed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're looking while you're playing, you're looking at
Oh,
the ocean.
yeah, the
You're
view is
seeing
just
the ocean.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that where this is from? Oh, so cool. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
yeah.
I'm not even sure if I'm going to like this, but whatever. It's not my call.
No, it is. This is a joint effort. But I was particularly interested in this recording because the band is just absolutely amazing. Besides Freddie and you, it's Billy Childs on piano, Bob Bowman on bass, and
Wow.
Eddie Marshall on drums.
Oh, wow.
So we're gonna listen to a small excerpt of "One of Another Kind," Freddie Hubbard live with Bob Sheppard, and I'm going to share.
1980, 1980, probably 1984, 3, 85. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I saw something that it might be 84 or something like that.
Hmm.
But in any case, here we go. Freddie Hubbard live with Bob Sheppard.
Oh my God.
It's killing.
It's a trip down memory lane.
Well, it's like, I know you guys, the emotional attachment to these things sort of fade away, you know, because I'm not, but they come back. When I listen to it, I go, oh my God, that was a long song. And I was like, that's really interesting to hear because, Freddie's gigs, he liked to play fast. There was always really fast tunes, and you sort of never knew what he was going to call.
Right.
The particular moment. I mean, it's not like we say, okay, let's have a set list, and it's like, sometimes there was a vague idea, but this is a tune that he played a lot, and he played it really fast, and I think Eddie Marshall and Bob Bowman, was the first time they played. They probably just did the gig for that one gig,
Yeah.
So it's sort of vaguely coming back to me that, interesting.
Yeah. I love the connection,
Yeah.
like with you, Bob, and this band. Like Billy's one of my inspirations in music, and then getting to know Bob Bowman over the last decade or so, who's one of my favorite people, like on the planet.
Yeah,
Bob's
too.
awesome. And here you guys all together, 36 years ago or whatever. I just love the lineage and the way it all moved. Now we're here talking about it, and then I could like picture the room, like I just, because I know what it feels like to be there, and I have the audience, and it kind of makes me miss live performance even more than ever, hearing something like that with you. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God, I'm desperately wanting to play live.
Yeah.
But the thing about getting a call to do a gig with Freddie, it's like, oh, wow, great, get a chance to do a gig with Freddie, and you really can't wait to do it. But there was always like, I hope Freddie shows up. I hope we played some tunes that I know, and there was all this like trepidation, surrounding the gig. And then
Right.
a lot of times you just sort of, Freddie would get there and he would, and just, okay, fellas, what do you want to play? Let's do it. Let's go, and we rush up on stage and usually half an hour late, and people are going, well, we want to hear Freddie, and I could just I could just see the whole thing in front of me.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah, there
Were,
was a
were
time.
there?
Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
No, no. You go,
I was just
Josh.
gonna-
You're on the roll.
Don't argue. Don't argue.
I know, right? Who's on first?
Yeah.
Played with Ralph Moore for a long time in his band with Lorca Hart, and there was one night at Charlie O's that he was like, "Oh, Freddie says he's coming tonight," because he lived not far away from Charlie O's, and I was so nervous because I had never met him or heard him live, and he was there, and he died not long after that, and I'm really glad I got to meet him. I was nervous as all hell though, just knowing he was out there, yeah.
He was a very complex guy. He had a very warm heart, and he was actually a very sweet dude, and he loved,
Yeah.
he was. I really loved him, and
Mm.
I learned more from him than you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of standing. What am I again? What am I doing here? Like, what am I? I can't even believe I have to follow him. It's like, every time it's like, I can't
Wow.
believe I have to follow this guy. Try to place him.
Yeah. Kevin, go ahead, man.
But what is exactly that you took away? Is that some of the things that you actually like took away from playing with a guy like that? Because you mentioned like it's highly encouraging, but it's scary at the same time. Like, what is maybe like one of the most important things that you took away from playing with Freddie?
Well, it's on many levels, actually. One of was just the experience of like making it through. It's like actually getting on stage and doing the best job you could, and sort of like in just making it, just getting through the gig, and he called you, and getting the call back.
Right.
Do the next one, so, but you know, one of the reasons I think of, you had playing with Freddie, you know, you had to listen and feel it out because, you know, it was sort of, and anybody that played with Freddie would tell you this, is it was, you had to be really on your toes because anything could happen. You know, all of a sudden you turn around, look at, play, you know, and it was sort of like you were on the spot to play good, and he knew it. You know, it's like, you know, he was one of my all-time heroes. Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, he's Freddie Hubbard. You know, and it's like, so as a guy that just sort of made the music. I mean, he's part of the, you know, couple of handfuls of guys that really made the music, and I listened to for, you know, a long time, and the fact that there's all these layered things going on with like a young guy trying to, like, what I'm playing with Freddie Hubbard, so there's a lot of pressure you put on yourself. So that the idea of putting that pressure on yourself and knowing that you could make it it's growing. You grow from that. You know, if you can, you know, you're not so certain of that when you're doing it. A lot of times you're going, oh man, I'm way in over my head here, you know, with this, you know. That's like, I think we all felt that way sometimes, you know. But it was one of those things where you just, by just getting through it and doing a good enough job, that's a learning experience. You gain confidence that you could get on stage and play and react and use your ears and use your instincts, because that's what we're doing in jazz, is using our instincts from everything that we've done before.
Right.
So the only reason that I was able to get on stage with him is because all the stuff I did before, and that means everything. That means, you know, whatever wedding or Polish, you know, wedding or Knights of Columbus dance or whatever, it's all added up,
right,
to these experiences, and I'm not kidding about that, you know. So, and you know, just a visualization of playing jazz on stage with Freddie Hubbard was something that I guess was part of it. You know, you know, well, you got to call and you got to do it, and you sort of, you know, visualize it, and you start practicing, you know, Freddie tunes, and you start practicing time. You know, one thing about Freddie is he had some of the best time of any musician. His eighth notes were the greatest eighth notes ever, like fat, locked in eighth notes. Oh my God, it was like just there's so many elements to his playing that you take home to practice and try to. So it's a cumulative effect of playing with great players that we do all the time. When the last time I played with you, with Josh, it was, you know, I went home and said, man, I love it the way this tune moves, and I want to be able to get through and how, you know, this, like, you know, we feed off of each other.
Absolutely.
You know, so having those experiences with Freddie was they were profound experiences for me, you know, and I could have gone the other way. I could have said, man, I can't do, I got to quit doing this. It's just like, I'm not really, this is not for me, you know. You could have gone that way, I guess, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, come to think of it, like my last pre-COVID gig was with both of you guys at the Whale, March 13th.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great.
That was the
and Luca's here too.
Yeah,
Luca's watching right
Luca's
now.
Here.
Yeah.
Luca Alamano on bass and Shane Zavala on guitar.
That was a fun gig.
That was a blast. Man. It was a blast, and I mean and I totally can see that with you, Bob, with what you're explaining about, you do every gig with Freddie, and then after every gig you take something out of that gig and it prepares you for the next gig again. And that's basically like every time when I go over to your place and we play, and then it's, you know, like every time I have the feeling that I'm taking away something out of it, and then, you know, like onto the next session or the next gig, and it prepares me, you know, like for what is to come, you know. So I can definitely relate to that, like how you're feeling about your experience with Freddie. But were there because I've heard from Erskine also that, I mean, he could be sometimes like quite the character. So was it also like sometimes hard to deal with Freddie, that he would,
Oh, yeah.
like do something that wasn't to your satisfactory?
Well, it didn't matter what it was. Freddie was a bigger than life guy. He enjoyed being a jazz guy. He was a very powerful person, and he had habits, and he could, if he had a couple too many and he was in a bad mood, you could be on the short end of that, and certainly anybody that played with Freddie would tell you that, and somehow you survived that too. That was sort of part of the gig.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Freddie. It's some Freddie really got on drummers a lot. And but everybody had a bad night with Freddie.
Mm.
Like you just decided it was you're going to be we all have. You could talk about Billy Childs about and John Beasley as well, but Billy Childs has some really funny stories about things that Freddie would say on stage. One night I was on stage. That's our young man Bob Sheppard, our tenor. Yeah, he does weddings. He does weddings. And he goes, yeah, get me on some of those weddings. Yeah, and I did. I mean, I was grateful to be working, making
Sure.
money. So it was true. I got, the day before I could have been doing a wedding somewhere. And then I was up on stage playing with Freddie Hubbard.
Right.
And then the next day, that's the way it worked for me. All my whole life, actually. You never knew what you were going to do. And it was all work. It was all, it was all okay, until it wasn't okay. Anyway, Freddie, there should be, somebody should write a coffee table book about Freddie and all the stories. The anecdotal stories are would be a big volume, and it would be really fun to. But I really loved him, and man, he gave me a chance to play, and it was. I'll never forget it. You saw my picture here of me and Freddie on stage here, and I look at that and go, man, that was amazing. How did that happen? Really. So very, very fortunate that had that experience, and I have Billy Childs to thank for that, because I showed up.
Yeah.
He said, Freddie's looking for a tenor player. I said, really? I don't know, man. And he said, yeah, come on down to the Parisian Room. Remember the Parisian Room, Josh?
I missed that one, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, it was down on La Brea, and it was there for a long time. It was a funky, cool jazz club.
Oh, near my house. That's probably not too far from where I live.
Like La Brea on Venice. Like
down a little farther south.
There,
I see.
And I walked in there with my horn, and next thing I know, I was on stage playing, and I don't know what I played, but I was frightened to death, and then I got a call from his manager to do a gig, and I was like, "Well, was I hired? I was never officially hired ever, Just I don't think any of us were, we just sort of okay, we'll use him for a while, It was like you never knew. You just never knew.
Well, we can use this also as a very nice segue to talk a little bit about Billy, because you've mentioned before we went into this episode, you mentioned that Billy has been also a pivotal person in your career, and also your start in LA. So why don't we can actually watch a YouTube video of a live performance that you're doing with his jazz chamber ensemble, with Larry Coons on guitar. Who's on bass on this? I didn't see who was on bass. It's Smitty on drums.
It could have been Carlitos Del Puerto. It could have been Carlitos.
Oh yes, it's Carlitos. Yeah, it's Carlitos. So let me share my screen with you guys.
Does this mean I could go to the bathroom?
You could.
Yes.
And this is Lyle Mays. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Bob Sheppard's alto solo with the Billy Childs Jazz Chamber Ensemble.
No sound yet, Kevin.
Oh, my bad. Do I have to share that too?
I think you have to click that box on the left. Yeah,
Click the box on the left.
on the share screen option.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, my bad.
No worries. The joys of Zoom.
Yep. Music and computer sound.
This is such a great album that I mean, so many great Billy records, but Path Among the Trees, I mean, or this song, I guess. Um, so great.
You guys have image and do you have sound?
No. Weird. Not hearing the
That's
sound.
weird.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna share my sound with you guys because that at least will work. But you
Yeah,
can
we play
find
it that
this
way. Good idea.
video. Yeah, you can just find this video also on
Right.
YouTube. But here we go with share sound. And once again, Bob Sheppard with the Billy Childs Jazz Chamber Ensemble.
Beautiful, Bob.
Phew, that was hard.
Billy writes some really
Yeah.
gorgeous but hard music. My goodness, all those hits, navigating the upper structure kind of triads. Wow, it's
So challenging.
yeah,
I just love it. I miss this challenge of that,
yeah,
and so Billy, yeah, Billy has an original approach and its melodic sense, and boy, and talk about having challenges. I love that. When we get a gig that sort of like you got to sort of prepare. You got to know the music enough to feel comfortable with it to get on stage, and that really love that. I wish there was. I hope that returns because I really, I need it. I need to have
yeah.
those challenges, and really hard music and beautiful. I mean, it's not hard for difficulty's sake.
No.
It's written around the tune basically. And,
Right.
but so I'm very grateful that I met Billy way back then, and he heard me on his music basically and kept hiring me, and that played a lot of gigs with Billy, and quartet, with chamber ensemble, with funk stuff. His tunes are great. I just love his writing.
Sure is.
Yeah, I was watching the discography of yours actually, and I think you're at least on like maybe 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 records of Billy.
Yeah, Billy would know. Yeah, a fair amount of records, and yeah, but Diane Reeves too. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. Thank you, Billy.
Billy's connected me with a great vocalist who I still tour with, Alicia Olatuja.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he recommended me for
great.
that gig, and it was because of him, like you for Freddie, that he made something happen, and that's opened some other doors for me. I got to know Ben Sheppard much better, who's also played with you and Erskine and Billy Childs, and I love. There's the connection again. I just love it.
Yeah, we're all interconnected.
Yeah, man.
It's great.
Beautiful.
What a life.
Yeah.
And Billy knows so much about classic film, which is one of my loves. And man, that guy will just talk, and we'll just go back and forth, and he'll stump me, man, with all these movies. Yeah, he's just brilliant on so many levels.
Yeah, and his recall is uncanny. He remembers everything. Guys like that are stunning to me.
Something else. Thanks for playing that, Kevin.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, Bob, we have like a couple of people also who are on the Facebook who are saying hi, and let's check it out. Keith Fidmont says hi. Paul Kreibig, Ryan Scanlon, Maria is watching too. Hi, Maria.
Hey, Maria.
Zephyr, Avalon, John Prue, Karen Hammock, Jeffrey Gimbel, Denise Donatelli, Simon Mollier also, who's on your latest records. Joel Taylor, Leo Potts, Larry Dunlap, Terry Gibbs. Terry Gibbs, ask Bob why he didn't get a chance to play a fast tempo during the Freddie career.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking in.
I saw Peter Barchet poke on for a second there. Peter,
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Peter played with Freddie.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's another person I've got to meet through Lorca Hart up in the Bay Area.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I played with Peter.
Yeah, Peter's a hoot. Love Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch base basically about a different aspect of your career. Maybe it's the studio aspect of your career, because people don't they know you because you're a tenor player, but you play all kinds of woodwind instruments, and in your studio you have like, I don't know, a gazillion saxophones and flutes and all of that. But you're definitely, for what I consider like really like a woodwind player who plays clarinet, flute, alto, and tenor. And you said during your period in Rochester or in Philly, I don't remember correctly what you specifically said, but that you were playing alto for most of the time. Was it a conscious decision of yours to become actually, like, for lack of a better term, a woodwind specialist, or was this something that happened gradually over time?
That's a good question. I started on clarinet. I really studied clarinet and actually I thought maybe I would become a orchestral clarinet player.
Oh wow.
That's what I sort of learned, and then my dad was a saxophone clarinet player, and he wouldn't say he was that great, but he learned. He was self-taught, but he had a great sound on both, and he wouldn't teach me, or he always told me I had to study with a private teacher. But you know, back in Philly and back east, I should say, I think if you would talk to you know, all my peers, and certainly, like, you know, there's guys listening like Brian Scanlon and other, you know, it was sort of part and parcel, like to play double, because you played a lot of big band music. You played you know, pit Broadway stuff, you know, and it was sort of what everybody did, and I liked it. I liked trying to sound good on other instruments, as good as the person that played that instrument. And New York back then was a culture of that's where a lot of studio work was, and there was great doublers in New York, and just, you know, not to name them, but it was just part of the culture to be a double. And of course, the more you can do well, the more work you could get. And so I was started clarinet, and then in junior high I got an alto, and I was an alto player. And then a couple of years later I got a tenor, and I played that. And I was doing gigs. I was, you know, at 10th grade, 11th grade, I was in bands. You know, I was always in a band, like a soul band, a funk band, a wedding band, whatever. You know, it was just, so I would play both. I would bring both to the gig. And so flute was, I don't know when I started playing flute, not soon enough, but that's, I love playing the flute. I really enjoy practicing the flute and studying the flute. And so for me, it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, learn how to do this because of any particular reason. It was just sort of shared part of the culture of learning to play. If you're a saxophone player, everybody sort of played clarinet and flute. Mm-hmm. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And, you know, I bet if I moved to New York instead of LA, I probably would have ended up doing more Broadway pit work, right? Which is all about doubling, right? And so, you know, it was just something that I always did and always worked on. And then I got to LA, and man, it was like all these incredible guys, you know, doubling, and there's for me it's enjoyable, you know. So there's a lot of jazz saxophone players that, man, I don't care about that. I'm just going to play jazz saxophone and do that. But for me, I was always sort of I had many different hats I put on, and I enjoyed that. And it was just part. My dad wanted me to be a doctor, and he said, you know, he asked me if I practiced every day, you know, and when he got home from work, did you practice today? And I said, yeah, I did, yeah. And then when it came time to go to college, I said, you know, you got to go pre-med, you got to go do that, because he didn't trust the fact that you can make a living in music. As I did that, I went to, you know, a place called Rider, a school called Rider College near Princeton, and basically I would go home and practice along with Cannonball and Train and Sonny, and I flunked out. I got these, and I said, man, this is not for me. I'm going to be a musician, you know. And so I switched my major. I went to a community college in Bucks County, which was actually really amazing. And then I ended up at Glassboro State College, which is now Rowan University. And I was just doing gigs, and I had day gigs. Man, I worked at Sears stockroom. I did, you know, county road jobs. I, you know, did all kinds of, you know, worked in a food store, you know, in a supermarket, and I was playing gigs. And so part of I knew if I got, you know, to a high level on these instruments, on all the instruments, that there was enough work around to that I could make a living. So this middle class value system sort of was deeply entrenched in my psyche is being able just to make a living playing music was really cool. I always wanted to play jazz, and I always wanted to get better at it, but I didn't have any vision in my head that I was going to be the next Sonny Rollins or anything like that. You know, I just wanted to play and make a living, basically. So you know, your path. Yeah. You know, it's interesting, like where you end up. It's just so fascinating when I look back. And everybody has their own, you know, paths that they took and how they ended up where they ended up. But, you know, coming to LA was a big thing because there was so much variance and kind of things to do. And the studio work thing was very much part of just being able to play at a high level with and sort of show up and one thing that I always learned to do just doing gigs all my life is playing styles and having all that music in my head. Oh, you need that? Yeah, sure, I know how to do that. You need a, you know, mm-hmm. You know, so it was sort of part of LA as being able to work. I could function in different arenas, you know, and it worked out pretty well. And then and the jazz part of that was, I didn't realize that you're actually, as a studio musician, you weren't supposed to do that. You know, much later on, Chuck DeMonico, the great Chuck DeMonico, yes. And he came up to me at a session and said, "Man, keep that jazz stuff to yourself. You know, you're not supposed to be out touring and doing that." So I didn't know. I just, yeah, I'm going to do that. You know, I wasn't sort of, you know, trying that hard to be a studio guy. I was just, man, of course I want to, sitting next to the greatest players really in the world. I'm going, again, what am I doing here? I got to practice. I got to, you know, circumstance pretty wild, you know, how things happen.
Right. But then you were also open to it and you loved it all. And that's what I've always loved about your playing and your approach, is that you just have this, like, it's music, you know, with you. That's what I've always thought.
I like to be included. That's for sure. You know, playing with musicians. Yeah. And figuring out how to make that work, you know, with whatever. I always enjoyed that. Yeah. You know, it wasn't like, oh, okay, this is really a corny gig and it requires this. I said, okay, I know what that's supposed to sound like. I'm gonna try to do that well, you know. And that sort of, I think that's what helped me, you know, able to make a living in music, you know. And now it's, you know, like, you know, there's young guys that just, they want to play jazz and that's all they want to play, and that's cool too, you know. Like that's what you want to do, go after it, you know. For me, it was like, oh God, I don't want to work a day job. I'd rather be playing music, you know. Yeah.
Right. Well, let's show a couple of things, because you've played with some of the and you're in still a couple of the best big bands in the world. One of them is actually Monkestra, which is led by somebody who you've been a long collaborator with, which is John Beasley. And you guys actually just brought out a record with the Monkestra, which is called Monkestra Plays John Beasley. And I would like to play one full song off of this record, and then we're going to listen to another track of a big band record that you worked on, and we're just going to play an excerpt off of this. But I really wanted to show this track because it's a beautiful, beautiful original composition by Bees, and this features Shep on flute, and this song is called Song for Dub.
Oh yeah, it's an alto flute solo. Yeah.
Alto flute. I stand corrected. Yeah, super cool. Oop, we
Great,
don't want to do that.
great track, great song, beautiful solo,
It's an
Bob.
interesting harmonic flow to that,
Yeah,
and B's how he writes, it's like you could hear his comping, and then he orchestrates that out
right.
sometimes, and the way he does is real. I think it's very original, big band writing, very
Yes.
unique.
Yeah, he's a brilliant
Yeah,
writer and a
absolutely.
huge part of the important part of the LA West Coast scene. Absolutely.
This is on my first record. I met
Really?
We were on Steely Dan together. You know, we, you know, we we're sort of bros. We've done a lot of stuff, really cool stuff, and I'm on his records. Back in the day, there was a label, Wyndham Hill Jazz. Um, they tried to have an actual jazz label, and that was we did some really nice records on that label that probably you can't get anymore. I'm sure.
Yeah, I was wondering if those are stuff. Billy was on Wyndham Hill too, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Mm,
it was. Yeah,
bees. Yeah.
that record just came
Yeah,
out.
he did some.
Great record, just great, fantastic record, amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I listened to a couple tracks, and this is also, like to pitch that new record a little bit because it's absolutely amazing, and people should listen to it. And I was actually fortunate to do the rehearsals for that recording session
I remember.
because he
Yeah,
got Ulysses Owens. Yeah, he got Ulysses Owens to do the recording session. And I was talking with Peter once, and I was like, "Oh, I really would love to do Monkestra, like do a rehearsal or whatever." And Peter looked at me and he said, "Like, well, I'm the LA drummer, so you have to pass me first." And then Bees called me up. Bees called me up like a week later, like, "Hey, can you do like these rehearsals?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." So that was super fun to play with that band. And I mean, you were there for all of the rehearsals, and then most of the regular cats like Bijan and Wendell and Schroeder. Forget, was Tom Lore on this session
he
on
was,
this record?
he was on. I think he was on some things. A couple of things he couldn't make, but yeah, that's yeah. The fact that you're a big band, you decided to come to LA to do. You like big band, Kevin. So it's interesting that you're in the big band. 'Cause you moved to LA. It's a good. You were. You're getting finding your own path here and getting into playing with some really good bands, and that's great.
Try to definitely. And I mean, and you've played with almost like every band that there is to find in LA. And I would like to show another clip. This is actually a shorter clip of a really nice record that I absolutely love, which I think is also a really great representation of the big band scene in LA nowadays. And Beasley's recording is also definitely a part of that. This is a recording from a couple of years back from Dave Slonicker's big band record Entrada, which was nominated for a Grammy. And Beasley's first two albums were also nominated for Grammys, for large ensemble. But on Slonicker's record, it's You with Rob Lockhart, Tom Lore, Schroeder, Scanlon,
Brian,
and then
Brian's there for sure.
yeah, yeah. Wayne is on trumpet, Ron Stout, Clay Jenkins, Baptiste, Erskine on drums, Edwin on bass, Ed Zach on piano, and then it's Reichenbach, Charlie Morales, Alex Isles, and McChesney. So, like the best studio players that you can find nowadays. And I think I absolutely love this record. I think the writing is absolutely great. And we're going to listen to a soprano solo of yours on Point of Departure of the Dave Slonaker Big Band. So enjoy. I'm going to share my sound again because I turned it off for a second to find the right spot where to start. So here we go.
learning.
Yeah, nice. There was that Dave,
Yeah.
great writer. There's all these, there's a lot of incredibly talented writers, and Dave's one of those guys that uh, has been writing big band music his whole life. And he's an Eastman guy. He was and he became an orchestrator here for movies, and he's sort of a
Mhm.
hidden gem. There's hidden gems in LA that sort of do this real amazing quality, high caliber work, and you never hear about them, and that's okay. That's their, but that was Dave. I know he would. I know he would want to do more gigs. It's like I wish there were more venues for big bands in LA. There used to be a couple more places to play for big bands. We need more places to play, so we
That's
could
for
do
sure.
stuff.
Yeah. Big band wise, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time, actually, one of the first times that I actually saw you was at Typhoon with Sloniker's big band.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was an Eastman
Yeah.
guy. He studied with Ray Wright, who was
Oh
very
yeah.
very he taught at Eastman forever, but he's world respected arranger, arranging teacher, and yeah, people that study with Ray know how to put horns together. Cool.
Yeah. So something actually that I'm pretty curious about, like putting these you've mentioned this about style, but putting these like examples next to each other. Obviously, when you were like with Freddie, it was like freedom for all, like you could take it wherever you want. But I sincerely feel that that you really have a great sense of like sensing the vibe of a piece. Like what you did on Song for Dub was like very atmospherical and was like really nicely in tune with the song itself. And then the song of Sloniker has a completely different vibe. What would you say, and there's like backgrounds, like there's brass backgrounds behind you on the Point of Departure song. There's a lot of stuff happening around you. Like, can you give a little bit of insight, like how you're sort of like maneuvering through like a solo in a big band context where you have like all of these things happening behind you?
Very carefully. Well, we all do that, I mean, Josh, you do it, Kevin, Josh. I mean, we all do that as sensitive musicians. We're reacting to the music and what's sort of needed. There's a vibe. The vibe that's implied is a cumulative effect of your history, of what you've listened to, what you've played. Right? It doesn't happen automatically. It's an aesthetic that you develop over long period of time. So I used to drive up to New York like once every 2, 3, 4 weeks to hear Thad and Mel at the Village Vanguard. To me, that was the ultimate. Right? I said, man, if I can get up, maybe I can play in Thad's band one day. It was mind blowing. It was literally the greatest music and the experience of being there with that band and so there was at a young age I was lucky enough to be around a scene that had this high level big band stuff and jazz players and combination of that and studio jazz and I loved all that. And a big part of it is just circumstance and the idea of listening to guys that are around you and older than you, and sort of getting an education of like what's appropriate and what's not. And you don't know that when you're in it, but that's what you're doing. That was, I went to college and got my degree, but for the most part, I was always playing music, and that was how we learned, right? By knowing. You go on a gig and sometimes it's like, I was just talking to this for a player that was from Minneapolis that took a lesson from me. It's like, how do you know, you know, how to to do this? Like, what to play. Sometimes he goes. Sometimes I get in a gig and I'm trying to play really hip and it's not working. I say, well, I've been there. You realize that it's not. You're not playing the music. There's a melody going on. There's a vibe going on. And if you're playing from your ego, if you're playing from like a point of view of trying to impress or trying to show people what you have, then you get into trouble. And I've certainly gotten into trouble doing that. But over time, you realize that you have to sort of trust the fact that your instincts lead you to the right place, and getting confidence to not play, and try to. And I'm still learning to do that. It's the space, and trying to create a vibe is and meld into what's needed. So I've always sort of thought about that, and like why certain players that I loved, always knocked me out. Of course, they were great players, but it was their ability to negotiate the tune and the capture the essence of the music was really impactful to me. So I think that's an aesthetic that I have. And I've been told that I have that, and I'm glad that some people hear it, because I think it's helped me just keep playing. I mean, and we're all doing that on some level, but there's most things in music people don't talk about. They really don't talk about the most important things. It's just communicated, through the music, through the playing, and that. These kind of, I have a whole list of these kind of topics that no one talks about because it's sort of assumed, but they're not. All these kind of things we're talking about cannot be taught in school.
Right.
They're just unable to be taught in school because you can't quantify these things. Right. They're experiential. They come with over time, and having being around players that sort of communicate through their body language, through what the music said. Man, I've been kicked off of some bandstands when I was young, and like, man, don't come up here and do that shit. That was a real lesson. That was some real, and so anyway, these questions are really interesting to try to answer, because I just always try to play what's musically appropriate, and I try, so, and anyway, I hope that answers the question. I don't know.
Yeah, most definitely. I want to take it, I would like to take it to a completely different side of your career, where you're putting this into use, basically, and also talk about something that's completely different in style, because you've played with Steely Dan actually a bunch, and you sent me a video recording where you're standing next to Chris Potter, and the other guy's name is Cornelius. What's his last name?
Cornelius Bumpus.
Cornelius Bumpus, right? And it's an absolutely killing band. And I would love to screen share this, and that everybody is also able to hear this solo. So I'm gonna see if we can get this to work. Oh yeah, here we go. Share computer sound. And I think this should work. Let me know, guys, if you guys hear this.
Great.
It was so long ago, I sort of still had hair.
Yeah. Would you mind telling a little bit about how you actually got that gig?
That was because I was playing with Randy Brecker at Catalina, the old Catalina on Cahuenga Boulevard, and Walter Becker came in to hear the gig and heard me, and he hired me to do play on a Ricky Lee Jones record, and I ended up doing that record and Saturday Night Live and promoting that record, and then soon thereafter they were talking about bringing back Steely Dan. You know, Steely Dan was basically never really toured too much. They were a studio. It wasn't a band. It was like 20 years like of studio recordings, and so it was a big comeback, sort of a tour for Steely Dan. And I got a call to do it, and ended up, flying to New York and rehearsing and going on tour with Steely Dan. And embarrassingly enough, I'm at SIR Studios in New York, and looking at this music and going, I remember a couple of things and a few tunes, but I didn't really know the music very well. I wasn't that familiar with Steely Dan. So, and I felt that was embarrassing for me. Just like, man, everyone knew it cold. The band, everybody in the band, like, man, we're playing Steely Dan. And of course, I knew about Steely Dan and some of the famous Wayne Shorter and Pete Chrisley and these saxophone solos and stuff, but I wasn't that familiar with Steely Dan. And so anyway, it was a quick lesson, quick study of Steely Dan, and that was really the first. That was the first like major sort of a rock, pop tour I ever did, and it was quite fun for me because people were taking care of your bags and nice, beautiful hotels and catering, and I was like, wow, this is cool. I could get used to this. So anyway,
and the Alive in America record you're on, which kind of chronicles some of those years, 93, 94, right?
Yeah.
On the road. Yeah.
Right.
Which I played that and Asia to Death. I mean, those for me, those were two important records. So Asia for so many people, that record was so.
Yeah. I love the music, and Walter and Donald, they're quite unique. Really, they're talk about jazzers.
Yeah.
Walter and Donald they knew more about jazz than any jazz musician. They were jazz musicians. Mm-hmm. They knew all about the music. They could tell you who played on what record, and where it was recorded, and they were real diehard jazz fans, and you could hear it well, obviously with the harmony and
right.
and everything. So it's a neat gig. It was fun for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and did you have to like prepare like a lot? What you said, you didn't really know that their tunes. So was there like a certain amount of preparation, but also stylistic preparation that you had to do, or was that already like happening because that music was sort of already like in your head, or did you play that kind of music? And actually, by the way, I think you sound like a lot like Mike Brecker on that recording, actually.
Well, yeah, you're very kind. Me and a lot of people were we were very much influenced by Mike at that time. Mike was it's hard not to be, Mm-hmm. Mike Brecker was so powerful, and his voice, and yes, I'm listening to myself going, oh man, I'm playing, Mike Brecker licks, and I'm going, it's like, that's the way it was. And, Mike, certain players have such a powerful influence in your development. And I actually had to stop listening to Mike Brecker quite some time ago because it's so accessible to me,
Right.
I loved it so much, and I loved the language and his style and his sound and his approach. So I actually had to stop listening to it because it's so powerful of desire to want to play like that. Right. And of course there's only one Mike Brecker, so it's like, you don't want to do that, so.
So how was that actually for you when you actually got the chance to play with that Quindectet? Because there's a Live in Tokyo DVD where you actually play flute. So then you actually got to play with him, actually, with that larger ensemble.
That was, well, I knew Mike before that. That was not the first time I met Mike. We had, we weren't close friends or anything, but there were many times where I saw him, and after a gig I would go and hang out in the dressing room, and we talk, and so I did know him a little bit, but for me that was just it was Roger Rosenberg and myself and Dan Willis, who's a great saxophone player, oboist and doubler from New York, and we put Mike on this level, and we just sort of were jaw drop every night listening to him play this stuff, and it was very, very powerful to hear him play that close on stage, and not really ever repeat himself. I mean, he truly remarkable, like beyond remarkable. And I don't know what to say about Mike. The best thing I could say about Mike is he was as great as he was as a player. He was twice that as a person. He was a treasure. His losses was huge for the music world, and it's just horrible that he passed at such a young age. And but he'd give everybody. He would give everybody equal, chance. There was no status. There was none of that. It was just like, man, Mike Brecker. I didn't want to solo, and no, play. Roger, play. He would always give people a chance of the violin solo. It's like he wanted to share it. He wanted to share the experience. So I was very fortunate to get to know Mike a little bit. And beautiful human being, and just wow.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Words cannot describe.
Yeah. Well, we still have some music actually to show, and I would like to take it to your career actually as a jazz player, because you've made a decent amount of albums actually under your own name with various people on it. And one of the songs that you picked was the following song, which is on an older album of yours, which is called Close Your Eyes. And we're going to listen actually to, oh no, it's not an album that's called, yes, it is Close Your Eyes. Sorry, my bad. And we're going to listen to a little bit off the track that's called Close Your Eyes with Antonio Sanchez, Alan Pasqua on organ, and Gabe Noel on bass, Antonio Sanchez, the drummer. I'm going to share my sounds. And here we go. Close your eyes.
Great.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that in a while.
I'm ac- I'm actually pretty curious about because you've made several records over the past years. One of them just came out. We're going to listen to that to one of the tracks in a little bit. But I'm actually quite curious, like, what is your approach working towards making an album? Like, how do you go about finding, creating your repertoire, putting the band together? Is that like, hopefully, I'm assuming that it was completely your choice, like who's playing on the album and not some kind of like label decision or whatnot. Like, how do you go about the that kind of like preparation towards making an album of your own?
Well, I think the opportunity, you know, as jazz musicians, we, you know, it brings up a broader issue of like, you know, how you think about yourself and what you're trying to do. And
yeah,
some people just, you know, they crank out a record every year or every year and a half, and that's sort of their raison d'etre. That's what they want to do, and then they tour on that. And so, but we all want to, you know, we all have this desire to play. We all just have this desire to create music. But for me, you know, I should have like, you know, a good 5 or 10 records out by now. And really, considering my age and all the stuff that I really have in my mind what I want to do. But along the way, you know, I sort of like got hired to do other people's stuff, you know, and maybe I didn't feel like you know, that compelled that I had something to offer. I mean, I'm being very candid in front of you right now, and I know I do. But it's something that, you know, is a broader topic for some other show. For you know, the psychology of how musicians think. But for me, it was just about the opportunity given to me to do a record. Right there, that record was a product of a friend of mine that was, let's do a record. And oh, okay. Because like that was enough incentive for me to say, yeah, let's do it. And then it goes like, what am I going to do? Oh God, you know, how am I going to, you know, how about the music? What am I going to say about myself? What am I going to, you know, that all that inner dialogue and criticism of your own stuff, that has to sort of like take back seat to like, well, now I committed to doing a record, and what am I going to do? Right. So that's a good question. Is like how you go about that. First of all, that is just knowing that I have a date and a record and I need to submit something at some point. That's a big incentive for me, right? To show up for somebody, to have that commitment, to have that collaboration. Then it starts the gears going, the process, right? So that's what happens. Like, so what am I going to play? Like, oh, well, here's a tune that I like to play. How can I treat this tune a different way? I start fiddling around on the saxophone, on the piano, and you come up with a tune. And you come up, I like that tune. I'm going to do that tune. I'm going to mix it, So it's sort of, for me, it's having someone asked me to do it, basically. It's showing up for the gig and my gig, right? And so that's sort of how it happened. It's like with Walter Becker coming in to hear me playing with Randy Brecker. It was like, hey, I have a sort of thing happening with Windham Hill Jazz. Let's do a record. Oh, okay, right? And then it puts everything in motion. Because then it's on you, then it's on me, right? And so the musicians are easy, right? There's so many musicians that I want to play with, right? And Antonio Sanchez, by the way, I was able to grab him because he was in town doing a Billy Childs record. So, and I said, Antonio, can you stay a few more days and we could do my record? And so that was a pivotal personnel choice. That then I got Alan Love and this beautiful bass player, Gabe Noel, this really young bass player who's great. And then the momentum, and then things happen from that point. But I don't have any sort of a way to say that, oh, I think this way, and this is like, then I do this, and that's like, it comes from necessity.
Yeah, right.
How about you, Josh? Is it different for you? You've done a lot of records.
Oh, well, I have about 6 or 7 now. Yeah, of my own. It's changing as the economy in music changes, I've noticed.
Yeah.
I feel like in the beginning, when I was starting to make records, early 2000s, there were more label opportunities or things that would come along that were offered to me. Now it's personally a little non-existent, so I have to be the prime mover for my own projects to get something happening. So, like I totally echo your sentiments, Bob, about there's so many musicians we want to play with. That's just like that's like not an issue.
Yeah.
You're just like, man, there's so many great cats and personalities I want to collaborate with. For me, it's always been like, what's the theme of the record? What's the story? I like storyboard it out. I funnel it into that thing, and actually to get out of that, sometimes it can be hard for me. Let's just make a record of jazz tunes or standards they're not necessarily connected in any way. So that can be a challenge if you're used to doing it like in this, like putting it into this machine that like, okay, here's the theme. Now all the songs blossom out and branch out from this theme. But if it's not, that's been a challenge for me to get away from that and just go, man, let's just go in and play, and not have necessarily...
It's like that. So many music, they have a concept about your music and how you're going to frame that music and put it out. And I love being part of those records, but frankly, I'm sort of like a reactive person. And my favorite records, my real favorite records are basically come down to guys blowing live, some bootlegs,
right?
Like hearing people play,
right?
And so I have this one side of me that just likes the organic part of like what happens when guys get together,
right?
And so I have this other, and it's interesting. That's a great question, Kevin. Like how people get at their music. You know, some people are really have strong ideas about, you know, what they're trying to, in the time of their life is affected, affecting their music. You know, there's a lot of things that go into it, but personally, it was about, you know, like wanting to play and like getting the opportunity to do it, and then like, oh my God, what am I going to play? And but when I do that, then there's a sort of a cool thing that happens was, I like what I'm doing. I actually can write. You know, I don't think of myself as a writer, but when I do it, people go, "Man, you write great tunes." You know, like, but some people think of themselves, you know, in a different way than I have, and it's a real personal thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a way to get myself into the music and not necessarily be a part of a recording that I've really enjoyed is to be an arranger, an orchestrator, which lets me kind of put my touch on the music, but I'm not necessarily even playing some of it sometimes, or arranging for somebody else as a sideman. That's given me a lot of joy as well. In addition to not having the pressure of, this is my record, I have to. What am I trying to say? Who are the right cats? It's a different kind of pressure.
The word pressure is interesting because it is a pressure, because you know, you could go show up for someone else's thing and sort of have this attitude about playing, but as soon as it's your thing, then it's sort of like, oh God, what am I trying to say? People are going to be looking at me
your
for
name's on
what
it.
am I doing? Like what is his music now? You know, it's like you're making it bigger than, and there's something about that is I shy away from that. You know, and I do. And some people have the opposite thing. It's like, I'm going to show everyone like they have these ideas. You know, You know, and it's just the way it's a reflection. It's personality. You know, your music and what you put out there is a reflection of your personality. And sometimes, you know, and it's a great question, Kevin.
Very good. Yeah.
I'm sure. You know.
Thank you. Trying to get better at this too. But let's go to, and speaking about records, like less than a year ago, you actually brought out your own latest record with Beasley and a Dutch bass player, Jasper Sampson, and I think Ben Sheppard is also on a couple tracks. Kendrick Scott playing drums. And let's play a little bit off of your new record, which is called The Fine Line. And this is a little piece off of I Didn't Know What Time It Was.
Yeah, that's a
So the
great
sax is
record.
sounding,
Yeah, super nice vibe.
the sax is sounding so loud compared to the band. It must be the way you're. Anyway.
Zoom might be compressing
Ev-
it
ev-
funny.
Oh,
yeah, it might be compressed, but I'm hearing it loud and clear,
Yeah,
definitely
okay.
that's such a
through my
great
headphones.
record, man. And Simon
Oh, thank
Moulier
you.
is on it, and Micah Tone. Man, you got some killing cats on that record.
Oh, thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, we're at it already for like 2 hours, Shep.
Oh,
So I
God.
think it's
You didn't know what
yeah,
time it was.
it's
I didn't know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So I think it's going to be
Thank you for having me. It's everybody. It's hard to listen to yourself. It's like, I wanted to do that, and I did that.
Yeah. But
yeah,
I enjoy listening to you. I
But
know we both, Kevin and I, do, and just getting to hear you with different ensembles, different players, and pieces of your career, and just hearing you talk about music, and it's really, really great. Thank you, Bob.
Oh man, my pleasure,
yeah.
guys. It's I'm quite happy you asked me, and I'm honored. So thanks again, and I'll know. Well, Kevin, I know I'll see you sooner probably than Josh, but I hope
I'm
we
working
can.
up to it.
Okay, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna say goodbye to all of our viewers. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I was peeking on the Facebook every now and then, and we had lots of people joining in. So thank you guys all so much for watching and spending time with us. We're going to be back next week with another guest. And Bob, if you can stick around so that we can do a little after talk, and we'll say bye to our viewers for now. So we'll see you guys next week.
And
All
we're
right.
out. We are out.
Yeah. Thanks, dude.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Shep.
guys. Too bad there's not a bar right here that
Yeah.
I know. I'll meet you at the bar,
can hang
baby.
out at.
Buy you a drink.
Yeah, man. That's
Man.
the whole reason that I decided to play jazz, so I could hang.
Play, talk, and drink.
Hey,
That's right.
oh man. And I know Kevin we had some more clips, but I actually have something else in a little bit at 7.
Oh,
And I'm so sorry to not get
no,
to
no.
everything. We could have kept
You're
going,
great.
man. This was a fascinating interview with you. Actually, just hearing you talk,
Yeah.
really great shit, man. Ridiculous.
Oh man, I'm just sort of hanging with my pals and talking about music.
I loved it.
Thanks a lot, Josh. Thanks,
Yeah.
Kevin. Anyway,
Yeah, we're all of these tracks that we've played a little bit. I'm gonna add all of that to our West Coast Jazz Hour Spotify playlist. So all of the yeah, because most of the tracks that we show, or the tracks that we can show, I'll put that in a playlist, and it's now up to like about 50 tracks. And once every now and then I'm sharing that playlist again, like, hey, it's updated, and like it shows all of this great music and all of that. So your stuff will be on it. But what was super interesting about this one, and you're the first one actually to do that, is that you're giving an insight to how the LA scene basically is right now, or from like between the 80s and now, basically, and nobody actually has done that just yet. So that's super interesting.
Important
and
to-
also good for everybody out there to know, like, that there's shit happening in LA.
okay. Well, to tell them not to move here because just kidding.
Yeah.
there's still enough. Yeah, right. But man, thank you so much. That was super fun. It was
thank you,
super fun to
Come on over.
text with you and to check out all of that music.
Thursday, Friday.
What am I? Friday, I'm not doing anything. Thursday, I'm actually doing a live stream thing, like a lane live stream performance thing. So
Pretty soon,
I'm gonna need
I don't do
my.
live gigs. I only do live stream gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lose
No,
that
but
stream.
I need some Shep medicine on Friday again for sure.
Okay. Let's text about that.
Sure,
Josh,
sounds good.
Josh, you are absolutely door open anytime you want to play, day or night.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. No, seriously, now that our numbers are starting to come down, I'm
Yeah,
feeling better
good.
about doing it. Nothing again
Yeah.
personal. Give my best to Maria, please, man.
I will do it. I will do it
Yeah.
right now, actually.
So
All
cool.
right, man.
I saw her on here. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, Josh.
All right,
And
Kat.
Yeah.
the
All right, we'll be in touch, Shep.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Talk to you.
Thanks, Bob.
Sounds good.
Bye.
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 All right. See you, dude.
See you.
All right, see you, Josh.
How do I do this? Oh, I see. Leave.